All right, welcome everybody. This is our 2 o'clock time with Phil Jochimson from Do It, who's a DevOps engineer. He will be talking quite a bit about AWS for at least the next 15 minutes. So with his intro to AWS Billing. And with that, if there's any questions throughout this, please feel free to put them in chat. I'll be collecting them and helping make sure they can be brought to the front at the end of the talk. Thank you. Phil, take it away.
Hey folks, yeah, as you said, I'm Phil Jochimson. I work at Do It. Been there for about 18 years. The two services I deal with are the WhiskWeb CMS service, which is based on WordPress, runs on Amazon. There's about 1,800 websites in that service. I also deal with the Do It web hosting service. There's about 600 some sites in that one, so decent thing. We've got a variety of things out in AWS for that as well. So welcome. Get my share going here. There we go. So again, this is 15 minutes introduction. As Al mentioned, I'm not going to really be responding to the chat while we go. There should be at least a couple of minutes at the end if you do have questions. If not, I can follow up with you folks afterwards. So this is our beginning scenario, right? Just finished implementing something new in Amazon, new application. It does what your department asked for it to do. The students and the staff are able to interact with it in the way that you said you're supposed to. Chair's totally happy because you're like, hey, it's only $4 an hour. We could totally do this. The application works for the whole month. At the end of the month, your department's budget person takes a look and says, whoa, $4,324.17. How did we get from $4 an hour to $4,324.17? What are we missing, right? This is sort of shocking, but this is not actually uncommon. So for this presentation, again, we're talking a little bit about the cost estimation, cost calculators, these concepts of OpEx versus CapEx. And then we're going to do a little quick click through a few of the screens so you can see what some of the billing actually looks like. So how did we end up with that $4,000 number? And this is a very realistic possibility, right? Start with $4 an hour. Okay, how many hours are there in a day? And that's how I get $96 a day. If you had a 31-day month, you're almost at $3,000 right there. So again, what are we missing? Well, there's other stuff besides just what you were able to find for the compute cost, which might have been that $4 an hour. There's storage, networking, logs, quite a few things. It is very rare for an application to be implemented on Amazon and you only use one or two of the services. Now, not everything's super expensive, but there are additional things that end up coming into play. So this is the kind of things to keep in mind. And again, just to wrap your heads around it, you do want to find out what those big things are, and that will get you in the ballpark. There's going to be some extra stuff though, so keep that in mind. So this OpEx versus CapEx thing. So operational expenditures are going to be things that are done how the public cloud does billing, which is based on usage, like how much network did you use, exactly how much storage did you use, exactly how much compute did you use, how many hours a day were you running that. Capital expenditures is a lot more like what we more commonly do here at the UW with budgeting, right? We have either a biannual or a yearly budget cycle, and you need to get new hardware and it has to be replaced every 4 or 5 years, something like that. Again, it's a very different thing to think about. Like, all right, how many hours over the life of that 5 years did I have that server on, or how long how many hours was that network switch running? With the public cloud, since you don't have to pay for things that you're not using when you're not using them, you're not going to necessarily have the same kind of usage there. And that's one of the reasons this is kind of hard to wrap our heads around. It also can be inconsistent, right? So if I've got something that has a huge peak because of students coming to campus, or like it's finals week and there's something about them, the students finishing up their final projects, and that really spikes the usage, it's something to keep in mind, right? It might change, but during summer, maybe it's pretty quiet, right? Maybe it doesn't even have to be on, or maybe it can be used, to a lower amount. So that's the thing to keep in mind as well. So trying to, getting people, just giving them even this OpEx versus CapEx, like go look it up, do some reading about it. I can't tell you exactly how much something's going to cost in 1 year to run it. What you're looking for is for that application to accomplish something. We can tell you that the application's going to be able to accomplish that task, but we won't know exactly how much. We're going to pick those big things, right? So we want to pick that big stuff, but expect that there's going to be some extras. There are tools that Amazon provides to try to do cost calculations. And again, you might have an idea about the how much you need of something, but you're also going to do a lot of learning on the fly when you're running the thing to find out what's actually needed. So I'm gonna jump back out of this and I'm gonna click through a few examples here in the actual billing console so you can see kind of what we're up against. There is a lot of complexity there, because everything is a service and there's our quote unquote thousands of services in Amazon just alone, let alone how, Azure or GCP might do it, right? There's a lot of complexity there. Let's see, my first example. Trying to find, let's do this one. All right, so just starting from the main AWS console, you'll notice I actually do get some information about billing that's surfaced right away. And this is just what I get when I log in, right? So I've got some of this information. This is one of our test accounts, just a smaller usage for thing, or should I say it's not the most heavily used account we have, but it does break some of these things out so you can start seeing what we're actually spending our money on. And some of this trending information just, does it look like we're going to be spending more this month or next month? And as you can imagine, it greatly depends on the nature of your applications as well. So just going to go type in billing. We'll head over there, see what we get out of the box. Clear a couple of their, hey, we're updating things warnings. You'll see me do that. So when I scroll down here, this one, service by service, this is actually a really useful way for us to wrap our heads around what's going on. I think if I scroll that, there we go. Right, so you get elastic load balancing. So this is a load balancing service. This is a database service, etc. And you can see what that looks like over time. I guess I'm just going to see, what does 6 months look like? See if that's any more interesting. Yeah, so it looks like we might have had a lower usage in December, or we started doing something more in January. Maybe that coincides with, again, students showing up to, going home on Christmas break, or coming back and starting classes again. Now, this isn't enough information for me to answer really tough questions like, all right, well, what am I doing with load balancing service? Why is it costing that much? Or even like this thing, why does it look like the RDS, the database service, is higher than it was last month? So I'm going to go over to, I think it's the Cost Explorer, start there, and then I'm going to show you a few things that we can end up getting into. And now right off the bat, this looks worse, I would say, right? As far as what did this tell me? This is a total by day, which is interesting, but you can also see it's pretty consistent. There's going to be, in this case, looks like a once a month thing, but this doesn't tell me by service, right? This is just a total. It's not super informative. Going into the full Cost Explorer itself, I now start to get a bunch of these parameter options here where, okay, so let's not do 1 month. Let's see what, I guess let's try 3 months. What does 3 months look like? Okay, so you can see we've got a recurring monthly charge. This still doesn't tell us, what is it, right? I can see most of my costs are consistent, but there definitely is something that's happening once a month. So if I do this part about group by dimension, and specifically I want to go to services, there's a few other ways you can do this, right? A lot of ways you can slice this data. This one I find really, really useful because now I've actually got information so I can try to find out what that is. Like, why is there that spike? What is that thing, right? If I do my little hover here, I will see that it looks like this is our once a month charge for the support on this account. You can also see on some of these smaller ones, it breaks out all the little pieces by day. Now, if I go ahead and give ourselves something shorter, so let's just do like the last 7 days. Let's give that a shot. Now I can actually start answering questions about stuff, possibly, because I can actually see what's happening here, right? So it looks like on a day-to-day basis, the EC2 ELB service is the one that ends up using the most cost. The database is the next one, right? And this is stacked by, biggest at the bottom going all the way up. Now, this is where we can actually start answering questions right now. Let's see, look what I got here. So I got May 31st and June 1st. I've got an extra little slice there. What's that one? Looks like CloudFront was actually doing some work on those 2 days. On the other days, it looked like it was very low, right? Just 0.03, so 3 cents. So this is how we can start answering some of those questions. I'm gonna do another thing here. I'm gonna flip this over to, I think, let's see if I'm gonna grab 6 months. Yeah, 6 months. and I'm going to group it by, not by day, because that is very hard to actually get in there, and certainly not hourly, but monthly. Okay, so now I can see some more information that I think is pretty useful, being able to see. All right, so again, December was lower, and I can see what changed, right? We increased our processing costs with EC2. And you can maybe start answering some questions like what happened for trend information. There's a few ways to look at this data, and some of them are more useful than others. So it's worth trying to turn the data around here to see which things actually line up with what you're looking at. And again, different ways to look at this. I've got another example here, and this is one that I actually did where we dug into an issue we were seeing in the Whisk web service. Let me just make sure I can find the right one now. So this one, cost management. All right. So on this one, a particular thing we ran into, so we turned on the AWS web application firewall, and one of the things that happened with that is that we ended up seeing a bigger increase in cost than we were expecting based on what they said it was going to be, right? It was like, $5 a month for a web ACL, but we ended up having some other things change. Now, this is, again, a little bit hard to see here, but this darker purple line, which is called data transfer regional bytes, was hovering about what, 7, 10, maybe 12, $13, something like that, right? So it's a little bit lower there. And then you'll notice after February 20th or so, it started trending to being 20, 27, 24, 19, 27, right? So it's higher. I'll try this a different way. Again, some of the way this data is set up, it's a little bit harder to see, but this is one of the things we were looking for. So the cost we were able to find by digging into it, like why did our costs go up that month for turning on the web application firewall when the web application firewall costs themselves weren't actually very high? And this was as a result of transferring logs into CloudWatch. So CloudWatch is a pretty expensive place to actually push logs into. And if you think about how a web app firewall is set up, that's a lot of information per request to log, and then to transfer it into the most expensive place to put your logs in Amazon in CloudWatch. That's how we ended up with this spike in the bill, right? We went from something that was $10 a day to now it's like twice, 3 times that. So that was an interesting thing we dug into, and yeah, questions if you have any. I know this is fast, so hopefully this is useful. The other thing I will mention, of course, is that the cloud team will certainly help you with trying to do some of this estimation. They've got office hours every Thursday, except for holidays, at 2 p.m. And yeah, I guess what do we got?
Yeah, so this is great. I'm already there's a bunch of things, gears turning in my head about questions I think I have. Ben already has one in chat. He was wondering, do you make it a daily practice to monitor your account's costs, or do you set alerts to let you know when there's maybe been an unusual cost that you need to look at?
I can tell you I do not make it a practice to daily monitor the account's costs. What I can tell you is that when I've logged in, and it has some of that information on that homepage, right? That's been useful for us to try to wrap our heads around if something interesting is happening. I think some of the trending information that it provides on that thing is really useful, right? So if I know I've turned on a couple new things this month, and I see that, hey, you're trending to have a bill that's 25, 30% higher than last month, I'm going to proactively then go ahead and take a step and try to figure out what that is. There's a bunch of reasons, as I saw, that you're going to see spikes on certain days. First day of the month, you're going to get a spike for anything that happens to be a monthly recurring charge like the service one. And then, yes, this was recorded, Sarah, I believe. Yep. And research because so the AWS is, sorry, let me just see if I can, oh, I just lost it. Trying to scroll up the chat. One sec. Yeah, AWS is cheap. If you don't do the rest of the math to figure out how long, if you had the thing on the whole day, the whole month, the whole year, every day, all the hours, $4 a month, $4 an hour doesn't sound that bad. You got to do the math though and try to figure out, okay, how much is that actually per year? Yeah, and then as far as alerts, we haven't done a whole lot with the billing alerts. Some of that has to do with right now the services we're using it on are really stable. They're not actually changing a whole lot from month to month. And other things are things like if we knew we were really busy for a certain period of time, it's going to be one of those things where like, yeah, we knew the costs were going to be more expensive that month. And like summer, we expect that to be a little bit less, right?
That makes sense. I think this has been great. Phil, there's already been a bunch of folks also asking about recordings, just to let people know about a week after the conference, we're gonna make sure these things are captioned. They'll be up there because I know I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch this one again some more and learn a bunch more. So thank you again, Phil, for this. And if there's any more questions, I know Phil will be hanging around and chat a little bit, but feel free to I'm sure he wouldn't mind a couple more questions in lobby chat as well. So thank you, everybody. And just mindful, there are some next sessions starting right about now. So feel free to jump into those as well if you're looking at those.